Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 159 of Lonely Gods. I'm your host, David, and I'm joined here, as always, by Kate.
We've done too many of these.
We've done not enough of these. Not enough.
If we weren't doing Big Finish, we'd be done by now.
That's true, but I like the Big Finish because
They're so good.
yeah, I mean I think doing all of the Big Finish is worth it just because we have stories like Spare Parts or the Mega or some of the Eighth Doctor stuff that we'll cover again when we get there. But oh man, it's totally worth it.
Well, yeah. I mean, granted, if you're, just a listener, it's probably not all of it's probably not worth it, but
No, God no.
but in the interest of being a podcast
and being completionists, which we both are,
right, it is worth it. So, any new stuff? Not really. Let me pose a question to myself and then fail to answer it. This show has news on it. Anyway, so yeah, right. Okay, Big Finish has the Halloween sale on right now. And I was like, oh, good, a spooky Halloween sale. They've done lots of spooky Doctor Who's. Guess what? There's no Doctor Who's. They've got Survivors and Omega Factor on sale, which is fine. They are both spooky shows. But they're not Doctor Who's. And they also, for some reason, have a book sale on right now. There's some of the Benny books are on sale, among other things, but not actually any of the Benny books that are actually important to the plot. So that's good. And it seems to be only the physical versions that are on sale. You can't buy the ebooks at a cheap price, which is too bad because shipping is super costly if you're not in the UK. So this sale kind of sucks if you're a Doctor Who fan.
I've been pretty disappointed in most Halloween sales this year.
Yeah?
As someone who just always wants to buy spooky stuff.
Spooky movies?
Spooky movies and games and comic books and such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't that great this year.
No.
And I'm still very upset that the Friday the 13th game did not go on sale on Friday the 13th. It went on sale this week because that makes sense. We had a Friday the 13th this year in October, but no, don't tie your sale into the date that your game is based on. Fuck you. That game is great, but fuck you.
Other new announcements include Torchwood 1 Machines, which is new box set featuring Torchwood 1, which is, the original one with Yvonne Hartman and where Yanto used to work. And they are going to be facing off with Wotan and his war machines from the War Machines. I guess somebody dusted off the old computer. Also, Eighth Doctor's Time War box set is now out, so go get that if anyone cares.
Have you been watching any new Doctor Who stuff, Kate, besides what we listened to for our show?
Let's see. No, the last one I watched was The Snowman, so that was. I think we talked about that. That was a few weeks ago. That
was the one where the sonic screwdriver doesn't work on wood, and it's like Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, right?
No. This is the Christmas special after that, the one that has Evil Snowman and Clara and the Great Intelligence and.
Oh yeah, that one it's okay.
I like that one. It was good.
It was fine.
It was good.
It's a blur. It's all a blur. It's
fine,
still Matt
whatever.
Smith, though, right?
It is still, it's still Matt Smith.
Yeah.
The only thing that really bugged me is I think I said this in our chat, but like they keep working the phrase Doctor Who into the dialogue like 5 or 6 times an episode, and it's starting to get annoying. Like
the only time it really worked on the show recently was at the end of the one season where they're walking away from the severed head guy, and he's just repeating it. I liked it that time.
I think I tend to prefer it as like a once in a while cute little reference, but working it into the show too much, especially in a big like mythological way like Moffat has, is a bit much.
I thought it was interesting, but most of the Matt Smith run is not that great. So,
well, the Snowman was in the good column for me, so it's nice to have a break from like 4 or 5 episodes in a row that didn't make sense.
You're never gonna be caught up to the current Doctor.
You know what? Ye of little faith. I'm on season 7. They just finished season 10. That's like only a 3-year gap, really, because they took so many years off.
Yeah, but as soon as you start the next Doctor, we're gonna have our new one.
Yeah, I know, but that doesn't really count because it's a woman. So.
What do you mean? Shut up, Kate.
I just don't like the idea of both the Master and the Doctor being ladies currently. That's kind of strange.
Well, isn't John Sim coming back?
Well, he did.
Oh, he did?
For like a multi-master team up at the end of the previous season, I believe.
Oh, okay, I didn't finish the last season.
Well, anyway, I just worry too, because like, and I'm like, now what happens if they want to actually have them male again? Because it's like, is there going to be this big outrage that, oh, you're taking the role away from women or something? Because it's like, now we can never have a normal Doctor ever again.
Just never listen to the internet, Kate. The internet's fucking stupid.
I know the internet's stupid, but the problem is that for some reason the writers' rooms in many TV shows these days listen to them. It worries me because it's dumb.
Yeah, you think they'd get the hint that the South Park writers, or South Park, the Simpsons staff got, like, you know, when it was back in the birth of the internet and they were looking at fucking message boards and shit. Like, they learned not to look at that shit a long time ago.
Yeah. Anyway.
So let's talk about what we're actually here to talk about this week. Starting off with our first story of the week is a Second Doctor early adventure called The Outliers, starring, of course, the Second Doctor and Ben, Polly, and Jamie. So this story, what do you remember what the planet's called that they're on, Kate? Because I don't.
I don't think they're not in a planet. They're like in an asteroid that's being mined.
Is that what it is? Giant asteroid?
Yeah, and there's like a mining town set up down there, but it's like weirdly flooded.
Yeah, it's about
and no one's there.
A group of, I believe, humans mining an asteroid.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's got like a gooey liquid center of a sea, but it's also warm, which like an asteroid shouldn't have a hot core, so that's weird. And yeah, people are kind of disappearing one by one, and like I said, like the lower levels are starting to get flooded and the water is rising. And it's all terribly mysterious.
Yes, it is. It is definitely a mystery episode. So we come to find out that the people are here mining. What is it? Is it
explodium? Some kind of like weapons,
something like that. Yeah,
whatever. It's some kind of fucking like weapons grade ore that they're using. That's apparently fairly rare and quite destructive. And but is found in this asteroid in abundance.
And it turns out people are going missing because the whole first half of the story is discovering that, you know, people are going missing and someone's manipulating the data because it says only 20 people have gone missing in, what is it, like 10 years? Because
something like that.
System wasn't actually. I mean, it's a fucking. The way they refer to this is it's a goddamn Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly. But somebody fucked up because I mean, who actually knows how to use Excel?
Well, I do.
Yeah,
for my
I know.
job.
But that's your job.
But basically, they didn't update the formula to total all of the columns, so it was only totaling like the first 3, and all of the preceding years and data was just being left out. What is it? They get the rate down to one person disappearing every 2 hours for 10 years.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, which seems like a lot, but they do underscore that there are thousands of people in this colony.
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. So, I mean, I guess.
I don't. There's some. You liked the story more than I did because there's some parts of it that just like I don't understand them logistically, and like it's kind of a slow burn mystery, which is what it's the whole conceit of the episode, and I just didn't. It ended up feeling like a normal, if not slightly darker than usual Doctor Who episode.
Yeah, this one definitely felt like it played up sort of more of the horror, and it felt a little more violent than Second Doctor usually goes.
Well, just because we come to find out that these people are being taken by a race of creatures that live
There's
in the middle of
monsters in the water.
Well, they're not even monsters, but they're like sentient creatures that just don't understand humans. And the weird wrinkle that because I don't think it was like more violent than normal, except when you get to the reveal that all of the people they captured, they were dissecting them.
Well, they say dissecting, but I mean, keep in mind this is a race of creatures that are described as like halfway between a shark and a squid. So when the Doctor and friends are like underwater trying to make peace and talk to them. Also, oh yeah, because there's like barnacles everywhere, and I guess late in their life cycle they turn into barnacles. So, but anyway, they're talking to the fucking rusty barnacles, and they kind of discover that they're like this basically charnel house of like dismembered body parts and shit everywhere. So yeah, dissected makes it sound kind of cleaner and more clinical than it actually is, because it was just a pile of gore.
Yeah, but like I don't know, because it is an intelligent race of creatures. You'd think after 10 years they would understand something.
Well, I mean, they are like the mining is causing damage to them, so they are kind of fighting back to a certain degree, and of course because at first, of course, the company doesn't believe that there's actually creatures, and then when they do believe there's creatures, the guy in charge is like, sure, pour all the radioactive shit into the water and kill them.
Yeah.
So,
which is also weird because we find out he's been covering it up, like he knows that the data is off because he's the one who did it.
Yeah.
And
Richard, isn't it Richard something? Richard Dink?
Something like that.
His name is Richard. I don't remember what his last name is, which is weird because I don't think most people call him Richard. Anyway.
It's I don't really have a whole lot to say about it, just because it's a decently paced mystery story, but I just didn't find the actual plot itself that compelling. Because we also find out that these creatures can see, and they can see into the possible futures.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons that they've been so aggressive, is that they see
their own destruction.
Their own destruction because of the mining. And one of the reasons that they don't kill the Doctor and friends is because as time travelers, they're different and interesting.
Yes, their presence changes outcomes, basically gives them more futures to look at.
But I mean, for me, I like the water, so this gets an automatic bonus for being on the water. I liked the use of the Doctor's way in to the mining operation was to use the Earth Examiner badge that he found in Power of the Daleks, which I thought was clever.
Yes, that was clever.
And I like that this is a story where everybody gets to be smart.
Yes,
because even Jamie, the Doctor's doing his investigating. Polly gets to work with the computers. She's the one that finds out that the Excel spreadsheet is broken, and she like alters the personnel records to give them access and stuff like that. Ben gets to be very sailory and drive the boats and figure out nautical mysteries and all that. And Jamie gets to help with the mining office and leading people around, and everyone was very well used. And it's not often, it's not just that they have things to do, it's that they're smart things to do that fit their characters very well. So that was a big plus for me.
And I do agree with you on those regards. I just feel like overall it felt like it didn't really stick out to me. It was a very well crafted story, but it was just another well-crafted story.
Yeah, I mean, this like I said, this is the kind of story we've seen before, but I think it has a bit of like a more menacing atmosphere because it was mostly because of the gore, and also because it just, I don't know, it felt kind of dark and isolated, and I found something about it creepy.
Also, I'm not sure if the villain knows what the word outliers actually means.
I think he's being corporate.
He keeps saying outliers, but he knows full well he's referring to the statistical norm.
Yeah, you know, he's trying to smooth it over and make it seem like it's fun. He's cooking the books. You know,
Cooking
you
those
know,
books.
I thought he was well handled too, because they kind of pulled a bit of a double Scooby Doo on me. Because when they get there, he's kind of like obstructive to the doctor, and he's like, you know, if his credentials don't check out, fucking shoot him. Um, but then midway through, he kind of just breaks for a while. Like once he realizes that there really are, you know, monsters and all this is coming out and whatever, he kind of breaks and he goes sort of like non-responsive for a while. And I thought, well, that's interesting because usually he'd be a big prick the entire story, and to have him out of the way this early, you know, that's a different take on it. And then of course he gets better and turns out, yes, he is going to be a giant prick the whole story. So they kind of tricked me twice. Um, and then yeah, one thing that I thought was kind of curious was they and this is a really strong sequence, is that when they're being examined by the sea creatures, they have flashes of like possible futures, and most of the ones we see are from Ben's perspective, where there's one where he is, you know, retired at home watching his grandchildren play. There's one where he is in a hotel room meeting up with Polly, who's married to somebody else. Um, and I really liked that. I thought it was a nice look into what might be, and I was intrigued because when they asked the doctor what he saw, he said, you know, people who were from his past instead of his future, and he thought were gone. And I'm kind of curious as to who that would be. And my first thought was the Time Lords, but I mean, I don't know why he would think they were gone.
Sarah Jane.
Well, he hasn't met Sarah Jane.
Oh no, you're right. Shit. We're talking second Doctor. Fuck.
Yeah,
People from his past.
that he thought were gone, that he meets again. I can't really think of anybody. Susan, maybe. I don't know.
Me
But
either.
anyway, I mean, you are right. We have seen this kind of like, oh, the monster is actually intelligent and it was attacking to defend itself kind of story. We see it. It's a pretty common thing in sci-fi, and Star Trek does it a lot too. Um, for whatever reason, I just kind of
find the. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I still had the thing in the back of my mind going, yeah, but they still brutally murdered like several hundred people over the course of 10 years. I don't know. I don't know about that.
It's I just didn't find the mystery that mysterious, and to the detriment of the story, I believe, since it was framed like a mystery.
Well, I mean, most Doctor Who stories are.
But I know, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think I'm just maybe more content to kind of just go with it. I usually when I'm watching or listening to something, I don't really try and figure it out in advance. And if I do figure it out in advance, that's usually a sign that it wasn't constructed very well. Because I don't even care. You know, I tend to kind of just go with the flow. And I thought this one had a lot of atmosphere and a lot of good character stuff. And so that's definitely big points in its favor for me. The fact that the framework was relatively standard didn't really bother me when it was done so well.
Anyway, so next up we have our Fifth Doctor monthly range story, Aquitaine.
Yep.
And this one is very interesting. It's very timey-wimey, which is, of course, always fun. And it involves the Fifth Doctor, Tegan, and Nyssa landing on a spaceship called the Aquitaine. And they are communicating with, oh God, why have I already forgotten his name? What is
Hargreaves.
Hargreaves, a robot butler that is running the ship.
Yes, the crew has disappeared, but Hargreaves is still going through his routine every day. And the ship's kind of gotten overgrown and fallen into disrepair, and he can't quite figure out why. And the ship, its mission was, it had been collecting like botanical samples, but it was also sent to observe a black hole. So they're in the orbit of this big black hole, and yeah, the crew is missing, and it's very spooky because there's still, I mean, they start to see kind of like ghosts of them, and they hear, you know, voices and all that on this derelict piece of shit.
And is it in the first episode or the second episode when they start splitting everyone up?
Oh yeah, they start splitting everyone up. Like I think it's within the first episode where the
first and then Tegan,
Nyssa, and then Tegan. Tegan stays with the Doctor for actually a fair bit before she gets separated. But yeah, Nyssa gets separated almost immediately because it's Nyssa, and we must make Nyssa suffer at all times. Because there's like these energy shockwave storms coming from the ergosphere of the black hole, which I think is an actual thing.
Yeah, but it's like a weird dilation around the black hole.
Yeah, but like it's rippling through the ship and it's displacing the people in time, and it's shutting down Hargreaves every time as well. So rebooting his memory when he comes back online, so he doesn't actually realize that he's been running the ship alone for decades.
Also, it includes one of the best explanations of time distortion relevant to the story, I think, in Doctor Who.
How so?
I really like the metaphor they use with it, because they talk about how it's these distortions are displacing the timeline of the ship and the people on it, and the way they compare it is with a record, where some of the skips are jumping the needle, you know, forward or back, displacing them in the same time, but some of the skips are displacing the grooves that the needle of the record is in, which, you know, is then like years later, or months.
Right. Yeah, that was. I mean, that was well explained, and I think that just in general, because even though this is playing with time the way it is, it's never gets to a point where like it becomes overly complicated or confusing. Hint, hint, Moffat. You always know what's going on and where people are for the most part.
Exactly.
So I mean, obviously, of course, the crew has also been displaced in time, and there's 4 crew. There's the captain. There's Dr. Aquitaine, there's Lieutenant Jennings, and there's some other guy, Mario, or whatever the fuck his name is. And yeah, Jennings, we see her ghost first, and she's in pain. And after, like, before Nyssa is taken away, she like gets infected by one of the weird plants on the ship, and so the captain was also infected and was put into cryostasis. But basically, the infection like makes you mutate into a plant monster, because why wouldn't it? And it was basically it was an experiment conducted by Dr. Aquitaine, who's not like chiefly a medic. He's primarily a botanist, but he was like trying to like make evolution, because again, why wouldn't you?
Because the infection that the plant infected people with was like rewriting their genetic code.
Right. So he wants to use Nyssa and the captain as his guinea pigs once Nyssa ends up in his time zone. And he also was experimenting on Jennings, who is now just completely a monster. And he also has her severed hand in a jar, apparently, because he's just that kind of guy. Yes. So it's a quest to get everyone reunited back in the original time zone and evacuate the crew before the ship collapses into the black hole, because it's kind of on a downward spiral in a decaying orbit. So the time storms are like getting more and more frequent
and severe.
So yeah, it's like, at first, Nyssa was only displaced by a few seconds, and they could still talk to her. But, you know, eventually she's displaced by years, and then, you know, Tegan gets separated too, and, you know, the TARDIS isn't where it's supposed to be, because why wouldn't it?
Because of the failsafe.
Because of the failsafe. And so, yeah, it becomes kind of a clusterfuck to get everyone grouped back to where they need to be. And also to, you know, get Hargreaves to actually remember what the fuck was happening.
Yeah, it's a really entertaining and like intense story, just because there are a lot of different angles you're constantly running, and this is like out of the loop and, infected by this plant.
She always gets infected or possessed or
I
something.
know.
Poor Nissa. Oh, man. Yeah, also, again, as with Outliers having water in it, I like black holes, so, a bonus point for black holes.
Too. And there's also a scene in episode 3 when the Doctor drives the ship into the black hole.
Oh, yeah, deliberately.
Yes. So, much to the much to the chagrin of Hakunin, or however you pronounce his name.
Hakuna Matata.
Yes, Hakuna Matata.
Yeah, he's a bit distracting to me because he mostly plays Adrian in the Benny audios. So all I was hearing was her baby daddy, just with a silly Russian accent on top. But that's okay. It was still a good performance. That was just me. But I don't know. It's just a really strong story. Like everything works. It's well written. The cast is great. The sound design is great. It's just, I don't know. It's really just fabulously done. And like, my God, they've done so much good for Tegan on audio.
They have. She's great in the story.
This is an especially strong one where it seems, I don't know like how unusual it actually is, but it feels like it doesn't happen a lot, where she's actually with the Doctor for the majority of the story instead of pairing up the Doctor and Nyssa, which is usually what happens. And they have such a good rapport when they're bitching back and forth. I don't know why they didn't do that more.
I don't know, but
and Hargreaves was just, I loved Hargreaves so much.
Hargreaves is the best. He's just such a fun robo butler.
He is. He's no Crichton, but I loved him anyway. He was just one of the most charming guest characters I've ever heard in Big Finish. I really loved him. I wish
down to the end when the Doctor's using his severed head to hook up to the TARDIS.
Yeah, and Nyssa and Tegan are like, "Can we keep him?" And I'm like, "Yes, please keep him."
Ship captain, yeah. Like, no, we need him.
I also like that he's an Asimov robot too, because they can they use the inaction harm rule to get him to do stuff.
Yeah, it's great. Painting story with very charming temporary. Hargreaves he's a temporary companion basically.
Yeah, I mean, once Tegan goes, it's really the Doctor and Hargreaves show. So it's this was the middle part of the trio of stories for the Fifth Doctor in 2016, and the first one was Waters of Amsterdam, and this one was the second one, and then there's the Peterloo Massacre. That's our next audio in a couple of weeks. So they're not really a trilogy as such, but they were all released back to back, and it was basically these ones, I think, that convinced a lot of people that the monthly range still had legs, and it kind of started an upward trend, because, I mean, as we discussed around the time of Moonflesh, a lot of people are starting to feel around that time that the monthly series was starting to run out of steam, and that people were sick of Nyssa, and the stories were getting pretty bland, and in some cases, like Moonflesh, outright shitty. And once upon a time, the monthly range was called the main range, and in some places on the website it still is called that. And in 2014, it was hard to say that it was still main, because not only was the quality deteriorating, once upon a time it was the home to the important developments of Doctor Who. It was home base for Doctor Who and audio. It was the Big Finish flagship. But since then, like, that was years and years ago, and nowadays anything important that happens gets a box set. Adric coming back was not a monthly release, it was a box set. When they wrote an actual regeneration for Colin Baker, it was a box set. The Eighth Doctor is only box sets now. Tom Baker is not even in the monthly, so it's kind of hard to call it the main range when that stuff was happening. So I think, yeah, people were kind of losing some faith in it. It was kind of just turned into run of the mill. We're churning them out every month and whatever. But But between Waters of Amsterdam and Aquitaine, I think, it, like I said, it really reinvigorated things in terms of like fan response, and it's been trucking along pretty nicely ever since. So, and I can see why, because Aquitaine's really, really good.
Yeah, no, Aquitaine is fantastic. It was a great story.
Yeah, and obviously we haven't listened to through the entire like monthly main whatever range up to this point, but I mean we've listened to basically all of the Nissa stories up to this point, and I mean you can tell that there was kind of started to
yeah,
especially that Hannah trilogy was no good.
No, it was not.
So it
didn't even make sense to be a trilogy. They're like,
no, well, I mean, if they had done something with the Hannah character and actually made her a proper companion instead of having her turn up for 5 minutes and then get rid of her.
Yeah, she was just in the background, like every story.
Ugh.
Anyway, so we have one story to end with, which is our Fifth Doctor short trip we're covering this week, called "The Lions of Trafalgar," and this discussion is going to be very short.
Oh yeah, well, it's
short trip. There's not a whole lot to the story.
No, it's I think the running time is about 17 minutes, so it's short for even for a short trip.
Yes.
Basically, the Doctor takes Nyssa and Tegan to Trafalgar Square, where the statue of Admiral Nelson is going to be put up, and it turns out that there's aliens eating people instead. And there's lion statues there that aren't supposed to be, but they're also eating people, I guess.
Well, they were no, they didn't eat people. They smushed people.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They smushed people. Pardon me. So obviously, you know, we have to put this to rights in a very short amount of time.
And instead of the statue of Admiral Nelson, it's a giant rocket ship.
Yeah, it's a rocket. So, but he seals it, so it's fine. And the aliens go away, so it's fine. And that's basically it.
Really, like you just described the whole story. The Doctor seals the rocket away. He puts in something that was like the only like real highlight of the story is he puts up a distortion field around the lions so that they'll be invisible and like people won't notice them until right before they're supposed to actually be installed. And he even says like, I really hope the artist just sees them and does the smart thing of putting a veil around them and acting like he put them there.
Oh, voila, look at me. Yeah. Yeah, because it's like the aliens have like possessed some of the construction architect workers or whatever. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this. I don't hate it, but I mean it's like we've said this before, but like short trips are either like these beautifully imaginative outside the box short stories that are just, you know, intelligent little sci-fi experiments that you couldn't do for a full episode, or they're nothing, and this one is nothing. There's nothing to it. There's nothing like innovative about it. There's nothing strange about it. There's nothing also very experimental.
It's also very weird to hear the Fifth Doctor doing Nyssa and Tegan voices.
Nyssa. Yeah. It's. I mean, I think it's kind of nice that Peter Davison actually narrates a few of the short trips for his Doctor, because usually the Doctor actors don't. It's usually companions narrating short trips or some other side character.
I feel the same way, but at a certain point, I was like, should one of them be narrating? Like,
yeah. Well, yeah. For some reason, a woman imitating a man's voice seems a lot less silly than a man imitating a woman's voice.
Definitely, I totally agree.
I'm not sure why.
Me
but,
either.
But yeah, I mean, he narrated Sock Pig, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, but this one was just different.
It was weird. But I mean, Sock Pig didn't have any companions in it, so
that's also true.
I guess he like left them down the street or whatever. So I don't know. It's whatever it is. I mean, the good thing about this is that Lions of Trafalgar is not one of the standalone short trips that you would have to actually pay money for on its own. It's part of it's back when they were releasing them in volumes, so you will get, you know, 7 other fucking stories if you decide to purchase this for some reason. What actually is this was from volume 4, so it was actually like the last box set one they did before going into singles. So what the hell is actually even in this? I swear we've done stuff from Volume 4 before. We must have. Let's see. Let us see.
Yes.
Oh, A Star is Born. That one wasn't very good.
No. Anyway.
Oh, hey, the rhubarb one. Oh, that one was very good.
We did like we liked the rhubarb one. It was just a lot of it was a nothing story like this one, but it was so weird we ended up enjoying it.
I know, but just the idea that there even is a rhubarb one is fucking strange.
Sentient rhubarb, man.
It's rhubarb, yeah. You know, it's also, the music of the rhubarb.
Also, there's some really good short trips though.
Oh, for sure. I was just like talking about this volume specifically.
Anyway, so Kate, what is up on the docket for next week?
Well, next week we are back to TV for the sequel to Kinda, Snake Dance.
And that's it?
That's it.
No audios? No releases? Wow.
No, just Snake Dance. I had a discussion with John last night about about how snakes about what if snakes had these like little prosthetic feet they put on to go to the dance and then took them off when they got home.
But why would you dance, Kate?
Because he's got little feet. Oh, not arms, just little prosthetic feet to dance with. Snake dance.
Anyway, we'll be back next week with Snake Dance. Bye, everyone.